Hey, we're live. That was a quick one. This Life in Tech, episode 119. I am Jason.
The bad guy.
Are you all recovered from that fun-filled Sunday episode?
Sure, man. I mean, it's always fun to have Pete on. He's got an interesting overall career. We'll say migration into technology, but the part is that it's each of them can. Pete, many of our friends, they all know the troll is coming, and I'm like Michael Jordan. You can't stop me. You can only hope to contain me. Because any of them at any moment. And that's the banter with amongst all of us always, was always fun. And
yeah,
enjoy. Wish we got to see Pete more and even Ken more in person than what we do.
I'll tell you, man, because I've hung out with both of them with their wives personally. Pete way more than Ken, but Ken, when I was at a conference in Tennessee a few years ago, Marsha was with me, Mrs. Pittman, and we hung out. And
the current reigning and defending Pittman family champion. Do not disrespect her on this show.
Dude, check this out, man. I forgot to bring up chat in case somebody's talking. Give me 1 second. But check this out, man. I'm working on this essay this morning. In discrete mathematics, and I happen to need like a 5-minute break, so I'm looking at some Hermetic symbolism stuff related to Freemasonry, and I'm looking at this image, and I'm thinking about it, and it's an old image from France, and so all the text is in French. I don't read French. I don't know French. I've never studied French.
It's a dead language.
What's that?
It's a dead language anyway.
And I'm not really reading the text. I'm really fixated on the image and the synchronicity of a few events that were surrounding me looking at this that led to it, okay? And 1 second, brother. And Mrs. Pittman happens to wake up about this time, and I see her walk outside with the puppy. There we go. And so I called her in, and I said, hey, man, I know –
We may be experiencing technical difficulties.
and it says this. French. I didn't know it. We've been together 10 years, man. Didn't know she could read French.
Well, I missed about almost everything you said there because everything glitched there for a moment. Not sure if it was your end, my end, whatever. But the last part, it doesn't surprise me that there's many things about the current reigning and defending Pittman family champion that you just don't know about.
I know, man. Yeah, it's interesting. On these Tuesdays, people have pointed out before that we get this little glitch. It's not on my end, because on my end, I'm broadcasting fine. I think it's on the YouTube side when they're transcoding the video, but I'll look into it. Yeah, it's glitched for somebody else also.
Yeah.
Anyway, dude, my story doesn't matter. You're right. The conclusion's what matters, and yet again, she was correct.
It's going to be interesting. Look, I won't put it past her if she is like what was that cat's name from the WWF that all of a sudden he's about ready to lose? Oh, the Great Muda. She walks by you and she's like, and all of a sudden you're blind and you trip and fall, and no referees. They missed it. They were distracted by what was the manager's name? Mr. Fuji?
I think so, yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say Tanya Harding taking the iron rod to the knee.
Well, that would be permanent. I don't think she wants to permanently damage you, but she might be like, look, it must have been a gust of wind and dust got in your eye and caused you to fall.
Yeah, pocket sand dust, ninja style. Wow.
The pastor.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
Don't put it past her.
At this point, man, I'm not putting anything past her. It's interesting you brought up Michael Jordan, man. I heard Joe Rogan say the other day to somebody, it's a joke he has, that do you think Michael Jordan leaves YouTube comments?
No.
Right. Because he's too busy being Michael Jordan and kicking ass. Right.
Yeah. You know, when you're at the top, you don't concern yourself with the comments. It's like spitballs against the battleship. What are you going to do? You know, LeBron James calling himself the king. You know, when you call yourself the king, are you really the king? And if you're the king, do you really worry about whether or not you are living up to a legacy or anything along those lines? You just go and be king. When you concern yourself more with the comment section about who you are, and that's what bothers you. Yeah. I mean, I think when there was some interview Michael Jordan had, and his comment, you know, when they were talking about, you know, who was better, him or LeBron, and he just basically said, well, I'm undefeated in championship games, and I didn't have the talent he had around him. And then didn't say anything else. I'm undefeated.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, because what else is there to say? I mean, there certainly isn't anything to say to take the time out of your day to put some, kind of like we were talking about on Sunday, some negative comment in somebody's YouTube channel.
You know, it comes right back down to me. People want to say who's the greatest quarterback of all time, and all those people are going with Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady. I'm like, he's lost 3 times. He's been to more. Joe Montana's got a perfect record on the biggest stage of them all.
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Montana for sure.
In my mind, if I need a cat, because I'm going to the Super Bowl, and who am I picking as my quarterback? Joe Montana.
Yep. Yeah, I would too, man. And I don't even care about American football, but I would pick Joe Montana.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You know, who are you going to? I mean, I'm Michael Jordan, undefeated. So, you know, I just those are just the things that I look at, and you know, Michael Jordan doesn't concern himself with the YouTube comments.
Right. Well, and to that point, you know, part of what I've been thinking about for the first quarter of the year, and kind of meditating on and developing is kind of this same notion where, you know, if you want to, let's say, profess a productivity technique, you kind of have to be productive, right? Because otherwise, how do you know what actually works? And so I think there's an enormous amount of trial and error involved in figuring out what combination or what amalgamation of instruments are required to help you stay on track with your goals and not get off the path and make time to post shitty YouTube comments.
Yeah, I just don't have time for those things. I don't see it being productive. You know, I will. You know, I believe in many cases, not just from the YouTube comments section, just negativity in general. If someone's not, you know, if it's not just, and it's not just one way, if someone is not bringing something positive to my life and I can't return that some type of positivity to theirs, then yeah, I don't need that type of relationship. You know, when all things are counted, I want it to be the balance where it shows that I was a net giver, not a net taker.
Yeah. Well, and interesting. Yeah. And interestingly enough, man, like I was talking about on Sunday, where I've been studying some of these streamers and their behavior and their chat's behavior, it seems to me that it takes way more energy because of the necessary construction of being negative. Like, let's just say writing a sentence, right? It seems to me that it takes way more energy to come up with that negative comment because it has to be negative, right? So you have to think about what's going to hurt that person, what's going to, you know, embarrass them, whatever, right? Whereas being positive to me seems very effortless. You know, just as simple as good job, nice day, hey, or how about this? How about just being quiet, right? Well, silence isn't a negative thing.
Not always, and we know this is even with the muscle structure. It takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile, and think about it. Regardless, you know, the friendly person that you see that's smiling, you're more likely to engage with because it leaves a positive effect on you. And there's like what I was stating. We all have to take from someone at some times in order to get our own energy refilled. But I want to hope that my balance is that there's more people that owe me than what I owe them. Right? I want to say that I gave more to the world than what I took from the world.
Right. Well, sure, man. I mean, look, to make an omelet, you got to take some eggs and crack them. But what you can do with the energy you absorb by consuming those eggs is proportionally more if you're actually consuming it so that you get the energy to do more. That takes forethought and planning.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Very true. And I guess that's probably a pretty good segue to goals.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about on the right before we came on. My reading goals I feel like I'm pretty up to par. Reading a lot of books. I haven't updated it, but there's one that I absolutely didn't do, and it was a conscious choice to not do it, which was the participating in my first gun event. With the passing of my brother, I was very, very angry, and I'm still angry. And I didn't think it was healthy for me to, to essentially, this is one of those things of having a firearm. You have to take a certain amount of responsibility. And I didn't think it was really responsible for me in an anger state. Like I won't ride my motorcycle if I'm angry.
Right.
So you have to be in the right frame of mind because you don't have four wheels. Balance is all about you. Everything is about balance in my mind. And to me, I was not balanced to be able to have a firearm in my possession. So I kept them locked up just to be safe. I didn't do the event. I don't know if I'll do one or not this year. I have not decided, but conscious effort. And I think that's a very important piece when we have our goals because life still happens, except, to me, it's not a matter of, am I never going to do it? I'm delaying it on purpose. It was intentional. I made a conscious decision to state this would not be healthy for me today. I'll think about it again. And when I feel like I'm in the right frame of mind again, I'll do so. We talked about the whiskey aspect. Don't know if I'll wind up doing it. I've done my research, so I know what it takes. The cost is a little bit high right now, but I might try some experimental things at home.
Right, man.
Maybe distilling some water, making some essential oils.
Well, sometimes you just got to run some neutral liquid through the pipes to make sure there's no leaks.
Yeah, I'll see what happens. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty good progress overall in my goals. I think important for people when you're making goals, it's not necessarily about the goal itself. It's the experience. It's the journey. You have to tweak and you have to say what's going to happen, what's not. You might find a portion of like, this is not me. I do not want to try to achieve this anymore. And you write it off. Don't dwell on it. I think that's the other part. Don't become obsessed with the goal itself, but the journey.
Yeah. Well said. And I think the motorcycle balance is a really powerful metaphor because not only is it true for that vehicle itself, right? But you even said it, your own balance in approaching those tools or activities. That's interesting, man.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, the departure from Capital and the joining of the new university where I'll be in the fall, which I'll announce maybe next month, caused me to revisit some things, in part because joining a new place, being the new person, I think warrants revisiting and reorienting towards those new goals, right? Because there's a completely different incentive structure in place. Like, for instance, tenure's on the table. And so in order to get tenure within a certain time frame, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And so things need to be reoriented towards those goals. And then, of course, more practically is dates change. You know what I mean? Of like when you do certain things or when you need to be obligated to do certain things. And so I've had to restructure that. I'll tell you what, in the past, I really, really did not like running, like at all. And so we would do, a 5K and then we wouldn't run for a while. In fact, we didn't start, we've been running for 5 weeks at this point, but we didn't run before that 5 weeks since the last 5K, which was in November near Thanksgiving. On the plus side, I think I'm on track or slightly ahead of schedule with most, if not all, of my overall, let's say, health, physical fitness goals. I think I'm going to trade out different levels of running for the gravel races on the bike. And here's another big reason. I've never ridden inside for a whole winter. Here I had to, and it absolutely drove me crazy. Absolutely drove me crazy, man. In the beginning, it was fine. But like the last month or so, dude, I can't get on the bike. So luckily now it's spring and it's warm. So like this Sunday, I was able to go for a ride before our podcast. I went outside.
Were you using your VR when riding?
No, I don't use VR, man. But I use like training software that has videos. You know what I mean? But it's not in a VR setting.
I wonder if that would change it for you.
I don't know. I've thought about it. I think because I do have a VR headset. I don't know. The training software I use doesn't have a VR app, but there's other things you could do. I don't know, man. I don't know. Because even on a trainer, I mean, you can still fall off. I mean, you're fixed, so it's kind of like having training wheels, but you could still topple. So I don't know how disorienting it might be at first. It's something to experiment with for sure.
Right, because I wonder if there's because when you were in California, you don't really have this aspect of there not being the sun out for a period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are affected by the weather in terms of sunlight, no sunlight. Maybe next winter I don't know if you have them in there or not, but put in those simulated the artificial sunlight light bulb.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's something because in the past I've ridden inside quite a bit when I'm following a training program, but psychologically, man, I found that for me, there's something different, materially different between choosing to ride inside because that's how you're training the day versus I can't go out because it's too cold. And I mean, like, dude, I'll ride when it's 5. I have the cold weather gear to ride in, but when it gets down to 40, 30, you can't ride outside.
One of the things I have for my motorcycle, because if there's no snow on the ground, I'll ride. But I've got it's micro USB charge, and it'll last 12 hours. The vest, it's got heated as well as for because I'm like, look, I want to ride. So as long as it's not snowing, I'll ride or die.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a little balaclava ski mask, kind of. It's for cycling and running. It's just, dude, it's too fucking cold, man. It's too fucking cold. But what I found is, especially since I'm hitting my other goals with fitness, running's way more enjoyable now. Way more enjoyable. So, it's like saying you just say to yourself, well, look, I'm not going to give up on the overarching goal, which is to become more fit, let's say, or more healthy physically. But maybe I take this sub goal, which is cycling, and pivot to running. And that's kind of what I'm going through right now with that.
You might. I mean, it's certainly cheaper.
Well, the thing too, man, is it's also easier. Here's the other problem I had is one of the last times I rode outside on my new bike, this one, I blew out my front wheel and almost crashed. Going down a hill.
How fast do you get on the bike? Like around 30 miles an hour?
Going down a hill, yeah, 35, 40.
Yeah, that'll leave a mark if you fall.
That could have been bad. That could have been really bad. Luckily, I was able to hold it up. But my point is it destroyed my front wheel. I mean, because when it blew, it just didn't pop. It blew, and then I was just riding on the wheel, which disintegrates. So it took me a while to replace that front wheel. That was another reason why I didn't ride for a while outside. But nonetheless, man, I feel good being able to pivot and have something else that is enjoyable and challenging. And here's the other thing too, is running I can do with Mrs. Pittman, which gets me another hour, 3-4 times a week with somebody I like to spend time with.
Until you realize she's trying to kill you.
Yeah, man. Until she's
this whole time.
Yeah. Well, So I don't know, man.
All of a sudden in the university, when you have some real life insurance policies and you're worth more dead than alive.
Yeah, that's a bad consideration. I
All
suppose.
of a sudden, her and Lily are eating completely different food, and
That's why I'm growing my own vegetables, son.
yeah.
But my professional goals are moving along. I mean, once I got the university transition ironed out and got that stress out of the way, man, my writing's been productive. I've really been thinking more and more about this notion of disseminating. Here, I'll encapsulate it this way. This is something I've really been thinking about, and I hit the nail on the head on how to measure this. Tell me what you think. I really, really have grown to dislike the current publishing model because there's only two options for the most part. Either you submit to a journal and they accept it and they publish it, and then everybody else has to pay somewhere between $50 to $150 to access that article. But and I, no way, shape, or form mind not getting paid as the author. That's never my argument. My argument is how you access it. So I don't like that. I don't like that I write a paper and if you want to read it, you have to pay for it. I mean, it's science, right? I mean, I'm not talking about a novel here. And so the other option then is what's called open access, which the most prominent form, unfortunately, is instead of you paying to access it, me as the author pay the publisher to publish it. Except that tends to be like in the $1,000 range. Well, anyway, man, I don't like that. So for a while now, I've been thinking about, especially back in, let's say, the Renaissance or the post-Enlightenment, how was scientific knowledge disseminated, right? And it tended to be through correspondence, essays, books. And so for the last year or so, I've been experimenting with these 5 to 1,000 word essays to communicate really concise scientific ideas. And so I've started to wonder, if I had $250 to spend on publishing something, do I spend that $250 on an open access journal, or do I publish it on my blog, not Medium or Tumblr, and use that $250 for like Twitter marketing? And I wonder what the difference, measurable and exposure to that information would be. And I think I'm going to try that pretty soon.
I think you could. And, you already have enough contacts to where you could always, prior to something, like if you're just, in terms of just someone validating that you actually research, right? Act like you have your own mini, ARB, IRB that is, you know who they are, but have at least done something and they can say, they can vouch for it, which is not what is done in a Medium post.
Right.
Maybe taking a little bit of that, whatever, I don't know, you know more about that part than I do, but the aspect of opening it up for public comment is, I think, the most compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And how I don't know that we really had this aspect of in the 1800s, 1900s, when a lot of research was going on. When we found out later that Nikola Tesla was essentially going to Europe and stealing other people's ideas and bringing them back to the United States and putting them out as his own. It was really difficult because you didn't have this internet aspect. So I think the publishing forum has not evolved in that sense. I think it used to be, at least at a particular time, more people were purchasing things like subscriptions to IEEE and other big journals because they wanted to do it. And so, you didn't necessarily get paid, but you were contributing, and it was for your own notoriety because your payment, so to speak, was from your university because you had X amount published and you were going around speaking and those things. And universities don't appear to be willing to front that money either. So here's is a good halfway point.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, man, because I'm going to have the summer off from academics, it's something that for $250, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is and see if there's a material difference. Because if nothing else, that's a little interesting study in and of itself.
Yeah, it really is. And there's always the aspect of get your own journal, get your own editorial board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you started to create one while at Capitol. Maybe the new university you're going to already has something.
They do some stuff, man, but the beauty of where I'm going is there's a tremendous amount of forward-looking opportunity. And you and I both know that just being in that type of culture makes a tremendous difference to your productivity. Being around people that are looking forward instead of either looking back or maybe even worse, standing still, interested in trying new things to see if it works. And if it doesn't, we'll just pivot and do something else. And as long as has the potential to be beneficial to the students, which I think is the priority, then it seems like people are all for whatever you can come up with.
I think that's the most important thing, right? There's a ton of people that probably they have good ideas and they're afraid. So why not in the university, which is a part of the learning experience, give them a soft spot to learn fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so bad to get a rejection letter because, well, failure is the greatest teacher. One of my favorite philosophers said that.
Let me guess.
Yoda.
Wait a minute. How's he your favorite philosopher if you envision yourself to be a Sith Lord? Or do you secretly think perhaps Yoda was a double agent?
Well, just because someone happens to choose which particular side of the Force they happen to be in, it so happens to be that it's still the Force that connects all of us. And you have to put respect where respect is. His philosophies were still good. And I just use them in order to turn those people of the light side to the dark.
See, man, as much as I may envision myself to be on the opposite side than you sometimes, I have to, there's something philosophically more rigorous about not closing off one side, one total half of what it is you're talking about, which is what the Jedi do. They completely reject the notion that there's any value whatsoever in the dark.
Well, and this is where in reality, I've always, which is a big reason why I say, hey, I'm more like, my favorite superhero is more like Batman or Wolverine, because you live by your own code of honor. To you, I might seem good. To others, I might seem bad. But really the notion is I live by my own code. I don't care what other people think about it. This is how I'm going to live. You either choose to be a part of it or not. I might choose for you not to be a part of it as well. And, so the interesting thing, like, is all these people with the new Star Wars movies are really all over it. And, Luke Skywalker would never say those things. I mean, what are you talking about? He's been getting his teeth kicked in for centuries, or not centuries, for years. And because I was up really late last night, and there was, so I watched the Last Jedi again. I just couldn't sleep. And there's an interesting part in there. He goes, the Jedi, at the peak of their power, they allowed Darth Sidious to come in and topple everything because they were not humble. They were so high up and so up on their own philosophy that they did not take into account that there could be something else. They weren't diligent in their own backyard. So it's true. And and who trained the person to topple the Jedi? Well, the Jedi did. And that's even more interesting, because it goes Yoda to Dooku to Qui-Gon Jinn to Obi-Wan Kenobi to Anakin Skywalker. Yeah.
Well, and they did it through the fulfillment of their very own prophecy.
Yeah. So, I don't necessarily say, in terms of other people would say I'm more Sith. I'm just more cunning.
For the record, man, I don't think you're Sith, maybe 10%, but that's just when it's convenient.
I'm more like Mace Windu.
It's an interesting analogy.
Because for those that are not as much on the geek side of this as to what I am, Mace Windu created his own lightsaber form called Vaapad. And in order to properly use it, you actually had, and very few could, you actually had to touch the dark side in order to be able to utilize it. And that's why very few people in the Jedi could, because it's the temptation. So to be able to take in something that could tempt you to go down a particular path and still to be able to overcome was very instrumental, and it can be very powerful. So, I try to live that kind of way in terms of myself, always pushing. The temptation to take on more power for power's sake is always there. But how can I remain happy as a notion of, we know that people that make more than whatever the income is, people are more happy at like $60,000 of income than they are at 150.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Things of that notion. How can I continue to grow in a particular way that I can remain happy and fulfilled, and not allow the power of the positions that I do, the achievements, and I look at it, and it's very, very simple to me. No matter how many successes or failures that I have, I only take a brief moment to reflect on them, and then I don't concern myself with it. I'm only as good as whatever I choose to do next. And that's how I myself don't fall into that trap of the dark side in this case.
Right.
I'm pushed to do something else next. Success or failure.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And I think that's a big part of living authentically as yourself, as you envision it. And I think that's a big reason why, like we were talking about on Sunday, that you find these social circles that are overtly negative. Well, because they're stuck on a negative island with no next step as they see it.
Yeah. It's very true. I'm just grabbing something here. We keep talking. To me, it's just still funny. But, as we talk about those things, this was given to me as a birthday gift a couple of years ago. I think you saw it, but.
Oh, yeah.
This is okay. This, because I am a geek. And now let's give it to me. The Sith Holocron.
That's one of the best things I've ever seen, man.
Yeah. And so, as it comes out, the Book of the Sith. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I love this thing.
That is great, dude. That is pretty great.
I don't keep the Book of the Jedi around. They're weak. They're weak-minded. They don't embrace passion. Passion is very powerful.
Well, they in a Jungian sense don't embrace their own shadow, which only it limits them to half their potential capability. They refuse to accept that they're capable of anything.
Yeah. So I could go on and on about my geekiness into that. Like, I was having this conversation the other day, and the only thing that is valuable among Star Trek to me was the notion of defeating the Kobayashi Maru. I don't believe in unwinnable situations. Everything is winnable.
Yeah. I think there's something to the philosophy.
You ain't trying.
I think there's something to the philosophy of the Prime Directive of not interfering, just observing. But it seems like every other episode that got violated, so I don't even know why it was a Prime Directive to begin with.
Well, when all of a sudden when the exception to the rule becomes the rule, then does it matter? And they were always blowing the Prime Directive out. They were interfering in everything.
Right.
So, anyway.
That's why I like Stargate. Stargate's a way superior series.
Well, I've always been a fan of the Star Wars aspect for me.
Oh, I don't know, man. There's only one real trilogy.
Yeah. Well,
Lord of the Rings.
It was only a trilogy. Star Wars has many more to it. I do like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is really good. Even the Harry Potter series. I mean, all these people put all this more political stuff into it. No big deal. When I was at this restaurant the other day, the bartender tried claiming that she knew more about Harry Potter than anyone there. And I just went, Well, okay, well, just tell me what Harry's Patronus was.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what's that? And I'm like, fail.
Wrong. How about the stag? That might be a good answer.
Yeah. I would even have accepted it was actually his mom and as a representation of it. That would have been fine too. Or what was the other thing one of the other things to me was I asked her, so which particular house is known for speaking Posseltov?
That would be Slytherin.
Yeah. So what is that? And I'm like, you fail. You're horrible. I'm like, do you even know who put that mark on Harry Potter's head? I mean, do you know that? Who's the of the house?
See, and a casual fan would say Voldemort. A real fan would say he who shall not be named.
Well, I don't say that because I'm not afraid of him. So I think Harry would call him Voldemort. Don't give power to such credence.
Oh, oh, dude.
Funny enough, though, who's the person? Who's the person that taught him in the first place? Interesting that even with the prequels, maybe the real issue is Dumbledore in all of these cases.
Yeah, well, all along he could have just been an instrument.
Yeah, his best friend that all of a sudden he has a pact with that he can't kill.
Mm-hmm.
Grindelwald, and then all of a sudden Tom Riddle comes along and becomes Voldemort. Maybe the real problem is.
Yeah, well, there's one character that's tying that all together, seemingly.
Yeah. I mean, eventually, I guess he had to do something right. I mean, it's just like the Native American, rain dance, right? They kept dancing long enough. Eventually, it would rain. They said it worked. Well, eventually, if Dumbledore kept teaching students, he would find someone that could, correct all of his mistakes.
Well, this raises an interesting question. If you can't correct the mistake yourself, how powerful are you really? I mean, if you can't correct it, how can you train somebody else to be that powerful?
Well, actually, I think that you could, and that this goes back to the best thing to provide to your students are the lessons from your own failures, and by giving them that notion of how you overcome some failures, and you may not be strong enough, but that doesn't mean you could not instill upon one of your students the right tools to help them not make that mistake so they could ascend.
That's right.
As a teacher, your legacy is by those students who have surpassed you, not those that you have been greater than.
Right. That's why I still maintain that the true main character of the Matrix series is Morpheus, not Neo.
I agree.
The entire prophecy hinged on Morpheus finding the one.
Yep. Yeah, and teaching all of these other people to not be scared of the machines.
That's right.
He knew he was going to get, basically, so to speak, he could get killed by any of these agents. It didn't stop him from going up against them.
No, and it did, and his own people, right? His own people criticizing him or trying to imprison him didn't stop him from speaking forthrightly and truthfully.
That's right. I agree.
Yep.
Once you take the red, going back.
Oh man, dude, zingers.
Yeah. Well, that's the great part. So in the first Matrix movie, this is I think a lesson that many people don't get. That dude that portrayed him, I don't even remember his name.
Cypher.
Yeah. He'd already taken the red pill, and he's like, "Hey, just put me back in." You can't. Doesn't matter. There's nothing can be done. You've already done it. Once you've been woke, you can't go back to sleep.
Yeah. Once you, the scientific, I think from Kuhn's book on scientific discoveries, is once you unweave the rainbow, you can't reweave it.
Right. And in that nature, he didn't get back in. He died. Notion. Don't betray.
That's right. Treason only ends one way.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's a good Tuesday show, brother.
Absolutely. Well, friends, and what did you even name your caterpillar?
It doesn't have a name. It just is.
Name.
Look at it. It's glorious, dude. I get a lot of compliments on it, believe it or not.
I bet it's I don't think I can grow mine like that. I don't have that much room between my nose and my lip, so it would be like extremely thin, and I would look French, and I'm not about to look French.
Or like Jonathan Winters.
Yeah.
Well, man, I had to give up the beer because it's just too much grain. I start looking like a hobo, and then I start feeling like a hobo, and I can't take it.
I will end it with this because you just mentioned the hobo thing. There is this this show on Showtime called Shameless. It is so wrong, but the one guy, Frank, in there who's trying to be the hobo loco man. They're doing all these things, and he's just like, all right, he looks like a homeless person. Well, because he basically is half the time. Well, sometimes it's the better one I'll leave is this. There was this video. There's a sale on donuts, and the guy in the business suit, not quite looking as dapper as me, but close enough, puts the bag down and is reading his newspaper. Some guy that's somewhat homeless comes over and reaches into this bag and eats one of his donuts. There's like 6 donuts in there. Shuffles his newspaper. He's like, what? He's thinking to himself, I can't believe this person would do that. Puts the paper down for a moment, grabs one of his donuts out of his bag, and he starts to eat it. Back paper. Moment passes again. The homeless-looking person eats another donut. Guys in the newspaper's going, I can't believe this guy's eating my donuts. Now, mind you, there were 5 donuts, not 6, 5. So they've each now eaten 2, and they call for the train. The other homeless guy reaches in the bag, grabs the last donut, looks at the guy in a business suit, breaks off the donut, gives it to him. Guy in the paper, he's like, I can't believe this. My 5 donuts. He's just eating 2.5. He goes, he gets up, looks over. His bag of 5 donuts was sitting off to his left. So all this time, he's thinking, how dare this guy? And this homeless-looking person is probably going, this guy, are you kidding me? He's eating my donuts. But he gave him a half of the last one.
That's right.
Sometimes what is appeared to you, not the truth, only the truth of what that person wants you to see.
Well stated. That's a good way to end, man.
All right.
All right, everybody. We'll see you again on Sunday for episode 120.
Peace.
Bye.